Hey friends, it's Mr. Austin, and it is time for another story time. I hope that you are as excited as I am. Before we begin our story, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about all the books that you've read, or all the books that have been read to you. Think about all the movies that you've ever watched, all the TV shows you've ever seen, every video game you've ever played. Have any of those been about you? No one's made a movie about me. No one's made a show about me, or a video game. No one's written a book about me. And I don't think they've written one about you either, have they? But that doesn't mean that our stories are not important. Inside of me and inside of you, there's a story. Everything that you learn, everything that you do, every experience that you have in your life, and everything that you create are all part of your story. And maybe one day you'll write a book about your story, or maybe you'll make a movie about it, or maybe your story will just be shared with your friends and family that you know. Whatever it is, that's okay, because your story is important and you matter. Today's book that we're going to read is called The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lessmore. Kind of a silly title, isn't it? This book is written by William Joyce. So William Joyce is the author, and the illustrations are by William Joyce and Joe Blum. So they had two people working together to draw the pictures in this book. That's pretty cool, huh? Here we go. Morris Lessmore loved words. He loved stories. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and his sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. But every story has its upsets. One day the sky darkened, the winds blew and blew, till everything Morris knew was scattered, even the words of his book. Look at all those letters. They fell out of the book, and this house is upside down. Look at the difference between the first page real quick. Look at how warm and bright that picture is there. And then after that storm, after whatever happened to him happened, look at it. All the color's gone. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wander and wander. Then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down, as had become his habit, Morris Lessmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. I've never seen a flying book before, have you? Morris wondered if his book could fly, but it couldn't. It would only fall to the ground with a depressing thud. The flying lady knew Morris simply needed a good story, so she sent him her favorite. The book was an amiable fellow and urged Morris to follow him. The book led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. What do you think that is? What's a place with a lot of books? A library. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with the fluttering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of 1,000 different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. Then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life, and so Morris's life among the books began. All those books following him. Morris tried to keep the books in some sort of order, but they always mixed themselves up. The tragedies needed cheering up and would visit with the comedies. The encyclopedias, weary of facts, would relax with the comic books and fictions. All in all, it was an agreeable jumble. Morris found great satisfaction in caring for the books, gently fixing those with fragile bindings and unfolding the dog-eared pages of others. Sometimes Morris would become lost in a book and scarcely emerge for days. Oh, Barry got lost in that book, but he's coming back out on the other side after he gets finished. Morris liked to share the books with others. Sometimes it was a favorite that everyone loved, and other times he found a lonely little volume whose tale was seldom told. Everyone's story matters, said Morris, and all the books agreed. At night, after all the stories that needed telling had been told, and everyone had settled down to their proper places on the shelves, the great big dictionary would get in the last word. It was then that Morris Lessmore would once again write in his own book. He wrote of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew, and everything that he hoped for. Get him inside that giant book, writing in his book. The days passed. So did the months. See him underneath the tree there? And then years and years. Look, he's getting older, isn't he? And Morris Lessmore became stooped and crinkly. But the books never changed. Their stories stayed the same. Now his old friends took care of him the way he had once cared for them, and they read themselves to him each night. Then one day, he filled in the last page in his book. He looked up and said with a bittersweet sigh, "I guess it's time for me to move on." The books were sorry, but they understood. Morris put on his hat and took his cane. As he went to the door, he turned and smiled, then waved goodbye. "I'll carry you all in here," he said, and pointed to his heart. The books waved their pages, and Morris Lessmore flew away, and as he flew, he changed back to the way he'd been that long ago day when they'd all first met. Look, looks like he's a lot younger in this picture, doesn't it? The books were quiet for a while. Then they noticed that Morris Lessmore had left something behind. "It's his book," said his oldest friend. Inside was Morris's story, all of his joys and sorrows, all that he knew, and everything that he hoped for. Then the books heard a small, expectant sound. There in the doorway was a little girl. She looked around with wonder. Then something fantastic happened. Morris Lessmore's book flew up to her and opened its pages. The girl began to read, And so our story ends as it began, with the opening of a book. The end. There he is writing in his book. I really like that book, and I hope that you guys did as well. Remember, you can write down your story. You can write down things that you do every day. If you can't write the words, you can draw pictures. And then, next month, next year, you can look back on it and remember all the fun times that you're having. And you could remember all the things that you think about, all that you hope for, even some of the hard times. Maybe you want to write about those or draw about those too. Everything that you go through is part of your story, and your story is important. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again so very, very soon. I love you and I miss you all. Have a great, great day. Bye.